There are moments in life that can break you, moments that you just don't see coming, and moments that strip you away of your confidence and your momentum and your identity. And in this video today, I want to slow things down a little bit and get a little bit more personal. I want to talk to you about one of those moments in my own life very, very recently, because it taught me more about becoming a man than any win, any achievement, any training session ever has. So I'm going to be honest with you guys today. And this story is about the month that really almost took me out, and what it gave me instead was massive. So when I came back to Dubai this September, I really thought that I was returning with momentum. I'd literally just spent 2 weeks in the UK with my family. My son turned 4. It was an amazing time. The sun was out in August back in the UK. Favorite time of the year over there. I felt grounded and I just felt alive. It was just so lovely to be back at home around family and just to really breathe them in. I felt connected. And, when you're here by yourself, that's something that sometimes you really, really miss. In fact, all the time. So when I stepped back into my empty apartment and the silence, it hit me harder than anything that I could have possibly expected. It was surreal, in fact. And, being away from my family, being hundreds of miles from the people that I love most, knowing that I'm here building a life for us, but doing it alone, obviously with the support of my missus and everybody else around me. But it's heavy in a way that you can't really explain unless you've actually lived it. And I'm sure many of you who are watching this have been through similar, quite possibly. Anyway, everything started stacking after I got back here. I had the worst flight of my life. Awful. Zero sleep, stress, no comfort. I was in a broken seat. Thankfully, I was well recompensated for that. And anyway, a few days later, with that terrible flight, I fell ill very badly. I had a gut infection that took 5 weeks to shake. The worst gut infection I've ever had. I couldn't eat. I couldn't hold down any drink. This is coming back to Dubai in September. Super hot, and I needed emergency care to stay hydrated. Then, just literally as that infection faded, after 5 weeks, I had a major issue with a historic disc issue that flared up. It caused horrendous neck spasms. I was back in hospital again. I was on IV drip painkillers, muscle relaxants. Training suffered immensely through this illness and the neck issues. Focus was an absolute severe challenge with just excruciating pain. And listen, I can handle pain. I've had so many bad injuries as a sports person growing up. I've lived in pain. I still live in pain. I've got some congenital spine issues that cause me pain on a daily basis. But the pain from this neck, the pain from the stomach issues, the gut issues, that wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part for me, it was the isolation, and more importantly, more significantly, it was the rumination. That voice in the back of my mind saying, what if you're not good enough for this mission? What if you fail the people you love? Those thoughts actually started coming into my mind. Thoughts like, what if you don't have it in you anymore? It was the first time since I moved here that I started entertaining those thoughts. And it's wild how quickly your mind can spiral when you are completely alone with it, in that echo chamber of your mind. And, in that moment, I felt weak. I really felt weak. I felt small. Not just physically, but also physically, right? I felt ashamed of my lack of capacity. I was really pushing the limits, but, worst of all, I felt a little bit directionless. I was putting in so much work, but I wasn't sure that I was being directionally appropriate. And there's nothing more dangerous for a man than losing his, 1, sense of direction, or 2, knowing what his direction is, but not sure if he's moving in the best way to get there. And so even when the physical symptoms faded, for me, the emotional hangover remained. It was, just ticking boxes. It was going through the motions. It was doing what I know I should do, but not really knowing what I should do. I wasn't myself. Really wasn't myself. And so it got to a point, right, as it always does, where you think, nah, this is it. And then one morning I woke up and something in me just kind of I wouldn't say snapped, but I just reached terminal point, like rock bottom. Not in like a breakdown kind of way, but more in like a clarity kind of way. I realized I needed to change something. Like this wasn't serving me. I had to find a new energy. And I realized enough was enough with where I was. I felt like enough was enough with shrinking. Enough was enough with the self-doubt. I'd done enough survival mode and getting through pain and, ticking the boxes, and enough of this small, quiet version of myself. It just hit me like, holy crap, like I'm not myself right now. This is not the Julian that I know. And so I picked up my phone and I called my mentor and I told him exactly how I felt. I've been reluctant to call him because he'd been going through some challenges himself. And do you know what he said? He said, after I explained, he said, good. And this is where it starts. This is the moment everything changes for you, Julian. And that was huge. And he reminded me of something that I had actually, in all this turmoil of pain and illness and missing the family, that I'd forgotten. And he told me that your identity doesn't shift when life is easy. Your identity actually shifts when life puts you on your knees a little bit. It actually gives you an opportunity to rebuild. And so following that call and during that call, I made a decision. A very violent and intentional identity-based decision. And it was to stand tall again. It was to reclaim my body. Most importantly, it was to reclaim my energy. It was to recommit to excellence and not just survival. And to actually act like the man that I know I am, here and now, not later, not something that I was working towards, but here and now. And the process was very simple. It's really about showing up with intent. It's about coming back to a place where, you train with absolute intensity, like it actually matters. Like I was training for a competition again, like back in the day. And it's about carrying yourself like a man who leads and not a man who hides. You can really get caught up in this way of thinking. And when I did that, everything in my world shifted. My confidence returned. My self-belief returned. My health improved. And amazingly, opportunities multiplied. I felt like my purpose, my focus, everything was reunited, and I became magnetic again. I didn't feel like I was chasing challenges or losses or trying to get back on my feet. I became magnetic because everything starts with how you move and how you stand and how you treat your body and how you choose to show up. Once you commit to a particular type of energy, this sounds woo-woo, but the universe actually starts to reward that and reflect how you see yourself. And here's what I want you to hear. And this is really important, okay? Every human being goes through seasons just like this that challenge them, that can break them. Everyone. Even the strongest people you know. Unfortunately, a lot of people who convey strength don't let this on, so it can be a little bit misleading. And these seasons are not signs of weakness. They're invitations. They're invitations for you to evolve. Invitations for you to completely rebuild. Invitations to redefine who you are. Because frankly, when life knocks you down, it's really not asking you to surrender. It's a call to action. It's asking you to awaken. And it's really about how you frame those challenges, right? So if you're in a low place right here, right now, you're watching this and you're feeling weak, if you're feeling lost, if you feel like you've lost your identity and your sense of direction, firstly, I want to tell you that you're not alone. But secondly, I want you to listen really carefully. You're absolutely not broken. You're absolutely not failing. You need to give yourself some grace and acknowledge that you're not behind. You're in the arena of life. You're human. You are living the human experience. And you're standing right at the doorway of your next, more evolved identity. This is an opportunity for you to evolve. And your next chapter doesn't start when the pain stops. Your next chapter starts the moment you decide to shift your energy, to reclaim your confidence, and choose the man that you want to become. It really is as simple as that. It's not easy, but it is as simple as that. Because look, you're the only person, you're only one decision away. You can make that decision. You're one decision away from a completely different identity. So you really need to make that decision. You need to make that decision today, not later. It's not about building your way up to that decision. It's about doing it today, here and now, categorically, without fail, with full commitment and full conviction. So look, I hope this helps someone who needed to hear this, because if I can rise from that season, you can rise from yours too.